תודה, תודה רבה.
Now, some people have not put their video on. It would be nice if you'd put on your video, then we'll see you, which would be nice. Richard, thank you. Stefano, there we are. Uri, Philip Todres. Hello, Philip.
Do you see me, Geraldine?
No, I can't see you. You must put your video on.
Hi, Cantor Richard Cohn.
Good afternoon, morning, evening, day to everybody.
Hello, Geraldine.
Jose.
You're there. Great. Lovely to see you.
Nice to see you.
My name is not Diana Levy. It's from the synagogue. My name is Benny Meisner, the has-been.
Hello, Benny Meisner.
Hello, Benny. Hello, Benny.
Hello, Benny. This is Jeffrey Fisher from Jerusalem Hill. Hi.
Hello, Jeffrey.
Hello, Geraldine. How are you?
Yes, well, thanks. That's great. So some people have not put on their videos yet. If in the bottom left-hand corner it says start video, please start your video. That's it.
Do you hear me?
I guess we do. So I think we'll get started in just a moment. We're still admitting people into the room.
Hi, Mark. Do you see me?
Now, yes. Hello,
Yes.
hello, Yoash.
No.
Lovely to see you. This is Geraldine. Really happy to see you.
Yes, I good. It's like starting the conference again.
That's right. So I think we'll get started. My name is Mark Kligman. I want to wish everyone a good morning, good afternoon, good evening. And for us still here in the United States, it's still a Chodesh Tov to everyone. And I want to put this in the category of be careful what you wish for, you may get it. We had an idea that we discussed at a conference recently. One of my last trips to Europe was in Hanover, Germany, that I discussed with Sarah Ross and Martha Stommacher and Geraldine Auerbach. And when you give Geraldine Auerbach an idea, she actually does it. So you have to be careful what you wish for. So our goal was to create an international forum for us to discuss Jewish music. And the unfortunate situation of the pandemic has led us to a wonderful situation. I'm sure many of you have seen just fabulous discussions online, and we thought this was a great time to really start this forum. So we're calling ourselves, at least for now, it's a mouthful, the International Forum for Jewish Music Studies. And we hope that we'll have a series of conversations, potentially working groups, and opportunities for us to work together. And so this is just the beginning of what we hope will be a wonderful collaboration. And I just marvel at the fact that technology is advanced to where we can all be together at the same time in our relatively different time zones. But we look forward to many fruitful collaborations. And the initial kickoff of our today's session, which you'll hear more about, is called Conversations on Zoom. And I want to throw things over to Geraldine Auerbach in London, who's going to tell us more about these forums.
Thank you. Welcome, everybody. I see we have 43 people in the room, which is wonderful. We also have 42 people who've managed to register with Humanities Commons, which is the base where this new forum has set up a Jewish music group. And the idea is just to connect everybody so that if you have an idea, this forum is member driven. It's an opportunity. And we've made this first opportunity suggested by Malcolm Miller that all of you, each of you can pick a partner and have a conversation, something that doesn't need a full-blown presentation, but somebody whose work that you admire. It may be somebody you already know, even somebody you don't know, but you'd like to talk to. So may I issue a personal invitation to everybody in this room that you perfectly please pick a partner and a date. If you manage to register for Humanities Commons, you will see that there is a list of every Tuesday. And if you see a Tuesday that's free, do give me a shout. We've got already next week, Matt Asterklein is going to talk to Abe Lubin. After that, Jeremiah Lockwood is going to talk to Hankus Netsky. We've got David Fligg is going to talk to Eva Fox-Gull about how the Holocaust changed music and how their music is coming back to. So there is a wide range of scholars to scholars, scholars to musicians, cantors to scholars, cantors to whatever you want. It's up to you. So if you can have a look at that, and if you join the forum, then you will get the messages week by week of who's going to be on and how we can help you. But we look forward to hearing from you how we can facilitate what you want to do. If you want to set up a group on a certain subject or anything like that, please get in touch. So now Martha will show us a little bit about how to join the group.
Hello
Martha.
to everybody. I would like just to show you shortly the website we created, because actually the forum should serve our the conversations on Zoom is just our first activity, but we thought to create a forum where, as Geraldine always saying, we create the forum and you can dance on it. So we are looking forward to your ideas and to facilitate the communication within the forum. We created this website. I hope that, can you see this now? You should. So this is the website. The link is in every email Geraldine sent. So there you can find general information, news, and so on. You can also find, so the website is the public page. Everybody can access it. And if you want to join the Jewish music group on Humanities Commons, to collaborate, to work together on papers, to share papers, or to let people know about events. So there is how to join. You find this on our website. Then if you click here, you will. This will lead us to our Commons Jewish music group. So I'm already registered, so it's I enter directly. There you can see the recent activities, what people shared. For example, Hervé Roten, he shared information about his music festival. There is a discussion board where you can send research queries or inform the other members about conferences, or find colleagues for working groups. Then there is a doc space where you can collaborate together in documents. And finally, you see the members, all the members who joined the group already. And there is also the core repository, where you can store pertinent papers. So papers you already published and you want to make them accessible to the community, so you can then upload them there. So this is just a short view into the page. And if you have questions, please come back to us.
Martha, could you show us the doc where it shows you which Tuesdays have been taken, the ongoing COZ, because on the group, on Docs, there's a place on Docs, COZ planned events.
So yeah, there will you find the list of the upcoming conversations.
Yeah, that's very important. Then you can see where a date is. Thank you. And also where it says site on the group, that's the website. So you can go backwards and forwards from the group to the website. Thanks, Martha. That's great. Okay,
Okay, so are we ready to start?
Where's Mark? He's supposed to introduce you.
Is Mark here?
All right.
I am here. So it gives me great pleasure to introduce our first session to talk about Nusach Ashkenaz with one of the experts that we have with us and a wonderful scholar. So with no further ado, from Jerusalem, Dr. Naomi Cohn Zentner and Professor Eliyahu Schleifer.
Thank you very much, Mark, and it's lovely to be here. I really bless all of the people who enabled this wonderful platform, and it's wonderful to see so many familiar faces in the little squares, and Be'ezrat Hashem, may we meet in person very, very soon. Amen. I would like to start our conversation just by giving a little bit of an overview of what it is we're trying to discuss in this special evening in Yerushalayim and morning in other places. We want to ask ourselves, what are the means to overcome the tediousness of the long texts of Malchuyot, Zichronot, and Shofarot from the Musaf for Rosh Hashanah prayer, which are known and famously very, very long, including many, many verses. Soon we will be discussing exactly how the format of the text is based, and how can music find a way to overcome how long and possibly even boring these texts can become. So we're going to try and talk of the different strategies, and this is going to be a conversation, but it's also going to be a chance to listen and learn from each other. There is a PowerPoint presentation with a lot of the notation, and I want to make this available to you, again, in the spirit of trying to create a platform in which everyone has access to recordings and to notation, and generously Professor Eliyahu Schleifer has agreed for us to share a link. So to all of anything which we're going to be showing in this website appears in the link which I have just posted to the chat, and you can download this PowerPoint and follow it, although again it will be shared during this discussion as well as a shared screen on Zoom. Another thing I would like to invite you to do is that if you have any questions, something specific related to what we're discussing, please feel free to post it again in the chat. And in the last 10 minutes of our discussion, we'll be able to go through some of the questions at least and try and give some answers. So without too much further ado, I would like to start our presentation and introduce Professor Eliyahu Schleifer, Mori v'Rabbi. And I know that many people here are excited to see someone who they describe as their mentor and their rabbi in the spiritual and in musical sense. And I'm very honored to having this discussion with Eli, and that he agreed to participate in this. And we will perhaps begin with talking about the text of Malchuyot, Zichronot, Shofarot. Why it is so difficult for us also has to do with the fact that the text itself has a very certain structure. So maybe we should begin by talking about the text. And I am giving the microphone over to Eli.
Shalom, Chodesh Tov. Thank you, Naomi. for the cooperation, which was wonderful, and I hope that everybody will enjoy what we can offer, especially in the PowerPoint presentation. I want to thank Geraldine, Mark, Martha, and Laurie for masterminding this idea of the sessions, of the cooperation between scholars and cantors, etc. It's a wonderful thing. So thank you all very much. As Naomi mentioned, the text of Malchuyot, Zichronot, and Shofarot is complex, and in order to find our ways in it, I have made a kind of a summary of the structure of Malchuyot, Zichronot, and Shofarot. Naomi, can you show? Okay. Malchuyot, Zichronot, and Shofarot are the three big pillars of the liturgy of Musaf of Rosh Hashanah. The usual way of celebrating a holiday in the Musaf service is to have one benediction, one blessing in the middle of the Amidah, and that blessing talks about the holiday that God has given unto us, and it ends with a final benediction, a chatima, which is usually Mekadesh Israel, God who hallows Israel, Veyom. That means it can be Passover, and it can be Rosh Hashanah, etc. It can be, the other holidays. But on Rosh Hashanah, this benediction, which is called Kedushat Hayom, the sanctification of the day, is split into three benedictions. One is called Malchuyot, and the other one Zichronot and Shofarot. And all of them present the aspects, or three main aspects of the Rosh Hashanah and what it means. So Malchuyot, literally kingdoms, it has biblical verses concerning God's kingdom, which we celebrate on Rosh Hashanah. Zichronot, remembrances, that is biblical verses concerning God's memory during Rosh Hashanah, remembering all creatures. And Shofarot, obviously, it talks about the shofar, from the great shofar of God's appearance on Mount Sinai to the shofar of Messiah's time. Now, each of these has the following structure. First of all, there is a preface which discusses the theme of the section. Then selected quotations from biblical verses. It is always 3 verses, sometimes more, from the Torah, 3 verses or more from the book of Psalms, 3 verses from the books of prophets, and at the end, 1 verse again from the Torah. In the Malchuyot, the verse is placed among other verses. In the Zichronot and Shofarot, it is placed in a, so to speak, less conspicuous place during the supplication. Then, as I mentioned before, and there is supplication asking God for forgiveness, salvation, and other things. And then a final benediction, which encapsulates the entire chapter into a few words. And it always begins, Baruch Atah Adonai, and then, Melech al kol haaretz, Mekadesh Yisrael v'yom hazikaron, or Zocher habrit, or Shomea kol teruat amo Yisrael berachamim. So as you can see, the Shofarot, you have here the Shofarot and its structure, and since the structure is quite complex and the text quite long, then we have a real problem of how to present it to the congregation. That's actually also how to present it to God. As cantors, we want to have these important texts well represented musically and in a way that it would be interesting and not boring. From the point of view of the text, it is comparable to the Unetane Tokef that was earlier sung in the service. But from the contents of the text, it's not as dramatic as Unetane Tokef, and therefore it presents some problems, which we'll try to show how they are overcome by the cantors. So let's first see what is the nusach of Malchuyot, Zichronot, and Shofarot, the basic nusach of it. We're quite fortunate to have a chazanit, Naomi Applebaum, who will chant the supplication Eloheinu v'le'avoteinu meloch al kol ha'olam kulo, in a very simple nusach that she knows from her family tradition. And by the way, her grandfather is no less than Cantor Glickman, Binyamin Glickman, who some of you must know. Okay, can we hear the?
מלך על כל העולם כולו בכבודך, וינשא על כל הארץ ביקריך, והופע בדרגון עוזך על כל יושבי תבל אל ארצך, וידע כל פועל כי אתה פעלתו, ויבין כל יצור כי אתה יצרת, ויאמר כל אשר נשמה באפו, אדוני אלוהי ישראל מלך ומלכותו בכל משלה, קדשנו במצוותיך ותן חלקנו בתורתך, סבנו מטובך ושמחנו מישועתך, וטהר ליבנו לעבדך באמת, כי אתה אלוהים אמת ודברך אמת וקיים לעד. אוי ברוך אתה אדוני מלך על כל הארץ, מקדש ישראל, מלך על כל הארץ, מקדש ישראל. אוי המלך על כל הארץ, מקדש ישראל, מיום הזיכרון.
What can we learn from this presentation, from this lovely chanting? First of all, this is a chanting of a Baal Tefillah, not of a kind of professional cantors, but simple Baalei Tefillah. And the basic pattern of this chanting is what Ilson and others have called the Techina mode. Techina, not the tahini, but Techina as supplication, the supplication mode. What the supplication mode is important for is that kind of crying unto God, and actually, I would say a little bit nudging God. That means we want to nudge God to do something for us. So this is the style that is first taken through the Uvechein sections in the prayer. I don't want to go very much into that, but what
I found this to be very interesting, especially as far as I tried to mark the yellow, where she actually moves into a certain melody, and it's the same melody again and again, and it can be used as kind of a way to balance out the recitation with something which the community is meant to be able to join in with. Maybe that's also another way to sort of try and incorporate people and to try and circumvent and come against this sort of boredom which you can have when a recitation goes again and again in the same kind of way. If you bring in a certain tune and you repeat it again and again, by then the audience knows it, and it's kind of a way to refresh and make the whole long section a little bit more easy, more palatable to the community.
Naomi and I have discussed the origins of this melody. We do not know where this melody comes from. When it comes to Melech al Kol Haaretz, Melech al Kol Haaretz, it is attributed to Zeidel Rovner, Shmuel Morogovsky, who was a very famous cantor at the end of the 19th and beginning of the 20th century, first in Europe and then in the United States. But we are not sure that this really, the melody comes from him. Actually, this melody seems to be very, very folksy, a very folk-like melody. This afternoon, I somehow was reminded of another melody, completely different, which is somehow related to the same kind of structure and has nothing to do with sacred music or sacred text. And the melody is a children's song, Israeli children's songs, that goes, פעם הייתי בתימן, שם ראיתי כושי קטן, והוא יהיה לרותי לחתן. So I once was in Yemen and I saw a little nigger, I'm sorry for the racist overtones, and he will be a bride for Ruti. So ta la 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 ta la 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 la, and the Melech HaKol Haaretz is just a glorification of this little folksy melody. Now you have on the left side, Naomi has written down the a scheme of the motives.
I was very surprised to hear that our Venema is also one of this family. So there's a whole family of Kadeshenu v'mitzvotecha and Venema Melech HaKol Haaretz. It's all the same family, which I tried to sort of reduce here. Da 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 da, was something which is really very, very small, a very small motive, but can really be used in so many different ways just to sort of break the monotony of the nusach.
And as you see here the Nemar. Also, it's number. It's the second line.
The second line, the third line.
V'nemar, 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 v'nemar. Now, this is used by the congregations to relieve the cantor. The word v'nemar comes before verses, v'nemar, and it is said, and then there is a quotation of the verse. So people sing the little melody without words, and at this time the cantor can take a good breath and then continue with this. I must say that the words v'ne'emar in earlier in manuscripts and in Cantorial books is really sung by the cantors and sometimes many times and with lots of embellishments. So that idea of relieving the cantor for a while must be a little bit later, perhaps at the end of 19th century or beginning of the 20th century. The nusach that you heard is really very simple, and it is sometimes used by cantors to sing, actually balei tefillah, to sing throughout the Malchuyot, Zichronot, Shofarot, not only through the supplications, but also through the other parts of the prayers. But usually, more trained cantors would elaborate on this nusach only at this point. And I have recorded another version of this same Eloheinu v'Avoteinu. And could we hear it now, please?
Yes.
Eloheinu ve'Elohei Avoteinu, מלוך על כל העולם כולו בכבודך, והינשא על כל הארץ ביקרך, ועופה בעדה גאונוזך על כל יושבי תבל ארצך. וידע כל פעול כי אתה פעלתו, ויבין כל יצור כי אתה יצרתו, ויאמר כל אשר נשמה באפו, אדוני אלוהי ישראל מלך ומלכותו בכל משלה. אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו, קדשנו במצוותיך, ותן חלקנו בתורתך, סבינו מטובך, ושמחנו בישועתך, וטהר ליבנו לעודך באמת, כי אתה אלוהים אמת, ודברך אמת, וקיים לעד. ברוך אתה אדוני, מלך על כל הארץ, מקדש ישראל, מלך על כל הארץ, מקדש ישראל, מלך על כל הארץ, מקדש ישראל.
אוי.
ויום הזיכרון
I think now we should be saying I, 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 I. Which is another way to have a breather, both physically for the chazan and maybe mentally for the kahal.
Okay, please notice the tempo, the difference in tempo between Naama's version and my version of the same passage, the same text. She sings much faster than I, and this is not a coincidence. Many ballet tefillah opt to sing passages like that, and especially in long prayers, in a fast tempo. This way, first of all, time is a little bit saved, and remember that this prayer comes after a long service of shacharit, and a long service of Torah reading, and a long amidah, silent amidah, and therefore sometimes people are anxious to see the tempo go fast. And this is what some ballet tefillah are doing, and this is one means of overcoming the problem of long texts, the fast tempo. Now, on the other hand, you have cantorial compositions which elaborate more on the mode, the minor mode, in which this prayer is supposed to be sung. One of them is Eliezer Gorovich, and Eliezer Gorovich, who was a very important cantor on Rostov, on the River Don, is what happened? He elaborated on the mode, on the minor mode. So what he did, he combined the minor mode and the Ukrainian Dorian mode. Ukrainian Dorian mode is a strange kind of scale that what is very important about it is that it's neither Ukrainian nor Dorian. It is an Eastern European, general Eastern European mode. And it's found in many Yiddish songs and in Chazanut, in Eastern European Chazanut. Now, in Eastern European Chazanut, it's never the main mode of a piece. It is always an auxiliary mode. So let me sing this Meloch al Kol Haolam Kulo by Gorovich, and I'll sing it much lower than written. You will excuse me. Eloheinu ve'Elohei avoteinu Meloch al kol ha'olam kulo b'chvodecha ve'hinasei al kol ha'aretz bikar lecha ve'hofa b'dargei onuzecha al kol yoshvei tevel artzecha ve'yeda kol pa'ul ki ata pe'alto ve'yavin kol yitzor
יצרתו ויאמר כל אשר נשמה ביפו אדוני אלוהי ישראל מלך ומלכותו בכל משלה. Okay, so what do we have in this piece? First of all, the beginning minor mode. And then the Ukrainian Dorian mode. And then when it comes, Ve'ida kol pa'ul ki ata pe'alto, may all creatures know that you created them. He goes into another mode, another cantorial mode, and that is the Hashem Malach mode, or in some cantorial schools, Adonai Malach mode, which is a kind, I would say, a kind of a major scale, but so it is a major, but not in the way the major scale is constructed in any European music. So he goes into that. And then he goes into the major. At the peak, he goes into major mode. So this combination of modes creates a variety. It creates a variety that is relieving us from the tediousness of the text. And in addition to that, he uses all sorts of other little tricks to make it more interesting. For instance, these sequences. Meloch, da 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 in order to make to create the embellishments of the text, and by the way, creating also an atmosphere of plea, of kind of supplication. So I think it's one of the wonderful renditions of this text, Meloch al kol haolam kulo. Let me just say that in reality, the parts of the Malchuyot, Zichronot, and Shofarot are divided. The preface, we mentioned the preface, and the verses, the biblical verses, are chanted differently in the three parts of Malchuyot, Zichronot, and Shofarot. The Malchuyot is sung in the Adonai Malach mode, sometimes mixed with major, and so are the Shofarot. And that is because Malchuyot talks about the kingdom of God, and there is this kind of stereotypic tendency by cantors to identify kingdom and majesty with a major kind of mode. And the same with Shofarot. Shofarot is, of course, the trumpets, the blowing of the shofar, again, in this mode. Whereas in the Zichronot, the text talks more about God's endearing memories of the people of Israel. Therefore, it is in minor. It's sung in in a minor mode, similar to the supplications, but in a way a bit different from that. But in the within the modes, the cantos make use of all sorts of little tricks, little quotations, borrowing from folk music, borrowing from other sources. So before we go into Malchuyot, let's go again to let's go to Zichronot. I'm sorry. Let's go to Zichronot. See the mellow atmosphere. Here is a piece, Ve'al Yedei Avadecha HaNevi'im, which is the quotation from the prophets, the verses of the prophets about Zichronot, about God's memory. So, Ve'al Yedei Avadecha HaNevi'im katuv lemor, your prophets have written the following. God commands the prophets, Jeremiah, Haloch vekarata beoznei Yerushalayim lemor, כה אמר Adonai, Zacharti לך chesed ne'oraich. God commands Jeremiah to proclaim that God said that he remembers the nation's beginning like a wedding. And then he remembers the nation as a small child. Havein yakir li Ephraim. Is Ephraim my small child that I always long for him? So there is a play here of, first of all, the declaration, which is in a majestic way, and then the verses which have to do with wedding, and the verse which has to do with the endearment of the little child. So let me sing this Zichronot piece by Todros Greenberg. Todros Greenberg was a Chazan in Chicago. He was blind, and his recitatives were written down by Shalom Caleb. And this is one of them, Ve'al Yedei Avadecha, number 3, from the big book of Todros Greenberg of Rosh Hashanah recitatives.
Ve'al Yedei Avadecha HaNevi'im ka'asu lemor, Haloch ve'karo aso ve'oznei Yerushalayim le'imorim, ve'oznei Yerushalayim le'imorim, כה יאמר Adonai, זכרתי לך חסד נעורייך, אהבס כלולו סויך, לכתך אחרי במדבר, וארץ לא יזרעו ונחמה, וזכרתי אני אס בראשי עושך בימי נעורייך, והקימו סילוך בריס עולם, beris olom v'nechema. Havein, havein, yakir li Ephraim, im yeled shashui. Havein, havein, yakir li Ephraim, im yeled shashui. Havein, havein, yakir li Ephraim, im yeled shashui. Ki midei davri boy, zochor eskerenu al kein homu meyai loy rachem rachem, al kein me homu meyai loy rachem rachem, rachem marachamenu, rachem marachamenu. Okay, now analyzing this piece, let's take a look again at some of its features. Let's start from, at the beginning. You can hear some word painting in the music. We cannot go into all the details, but for instance, Lechtech acharai bamidbar be'eretz lo zerua. I remember you, my bride Israel, going through the desert in a land which is not sown, in lands without any vegetation, I'm sorry. So, Lechtech acharai bamidbar be'eretz lo zerua. This kind of fall that you have. And then you can see a line later, V'zacharti ani et beriti otach. Up till now, we had a non-measured, free recitative, and now comes a melody. It's not a melody that the congregation can sing, but it's a kind of a gesture towards the congregation. V'zacharti ani et beriti otach, etc. And melodies like that come later on, and we'll go to the second page, and then Havein yakir li Ephraim, Havein yakir li, again Ukrainian Dorian mode, and Havein yakir li Ephraim. This melody is in klezmer style. It's in klezmer style. And Havein yakir li Ephraim was done by many cantors in klezmer style, or, as we shall see in a moment, in the non-Jewish relative of klezmer style, the Romanian doina. in a minute. But here, let's see, within the Avei Yakir Ephraim, we go on later on, we'll see Im Yeled Sha'ashuim. Im Yeled Sha'ashuim. Sha'ashuim is not my, is not Ephraim, my darling son, my son, which I love to play with. But Sha'ashuim is play, game. But in the Yiddish interpretation of it, and it's found in other cantos compositions too, Sha means be quiet, O little child. Sha'ashuim. And we'll see it in a minute in the famous Lewandowski rendition. So let's go now to, and not Lewandowski, I mean Malawski, I'm sorry, Malawski family. Just before we listen to it, please note that it starts with a recitative, and the recitative is again in the Ukrainian Dorian mode, and then after the recitative, there is a metrical mode, and these are the two parts of the doina. The Romanian shepherd songs, Romanian shepherd song from Wallachia and other areas of Romania. They always start with a kind of recitative. These were melodies which were not sung, usually played on a flute or on another wind instrument. Cantos loved the doina, and they utilized it in various places. For instance, in Unetane Tokef, where it says that God watches over the people of Israel like a shepherd over his flocks. Kevakarat roe edro ma'avir tzono tachat shifto. So cantos used to do a doina, a shepherd's doina on his. And then which is the rhythmical part of the doina. So now let's hear Avei Yakir Ephraim with the with Goldie singing it so beautifully in the doina style. Okay. I hope that you notice a few things. Number one, this composition also has sha, 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 shuim. This gesture of calming down a little child. Also, please notice the end. Both Todros Greenberg and Malawski and their pieces with a kind of cantorial bravura that is very typical of Eastern European cantors, mainly in concerts, but also in the services. I must say that this is one thing that, as a teacher of Chazanut, I used to object to, because in my humble opinion, it kills the continuity of the service. Because if you end a piece like that in bravura, and then you have so many other pieces to sing, and the services must go on. The services has to be an integral part of all its components. Then I don't like this to be done in the service, and yet the cantors do it. So again, the mode is the same kind of mode in minor, with a mixture of a very important mixture of the Ukrainian Dorian mode. Also, please notice that in all such composition, seminal words are emphasized. So Sha'shuim in this case, or Zachor Eskerenu, Zachor, I remember it. So the use, the emphasis on seminal words is also another means of enlivening the text. Okay, so far we saw the minor melodies. It's time to go to the major modes, and we'll go to Malchuyot. Al ken nekaveh lecha Adonai Eloheinu lirot. We hope, therefore, Lord our God, soon to behold your majestic glory. So, as I mentioned, this is done in Adonai Malach mode and in the major mode, kind of a mixture. But many cantors opted to emphasize more the major operatic style, a style borrowed somehow from arias of the opera, giving a chance to the cantorial tenors to show off what they could have done on stage to show off in the synagogue. And may I remind you that in previous years, that means in the 19th century, for instance, not many Jews were attending operas. Although we hear from Cantor Pinchas Minkowski that during the end of the 19th century and the beginning of the 20th century, Jews filled the halls, the opera halls, by the thousands. And they also were part and parcel of the big quarrels between prima donnas, which used to be accompanied by violence, physical violence. So they were also part of it. But usually Jews did not go to the opera, so they wanted the opera in the synagogue. And this is a kind of a tradition in which the Chazan holds on to the cantorial tradition, and he deviates a little bit from that to emphasize the dramatic texts in a grand opera style. So it's not really a grand opera style, it's a Jewish grand opera style. And there is a big difference between the two. So let's hear now Al Ken Ekaveh Lecha, as written by Israel Alter. Israel Alter wrote 2 sets of Malchuyot, Zichronot, Shofarot compositions. One of them was intended for students and advanced cantors, and the other one for the virtuoso cantors. So let's hear the version for a virtuoso cantor as chanted so magnificently by Cantor Israel Goldstein.
Hashem Elokeinu
I think we'll stop here. It really is a tour de force of cantorial singing by Israel Goldstein. I must tell you that Israel Goldstein is also a great master of improvisation himself. And to hear him improvise Chazanut is just a great pleasure. In any case, we need...
When I hear this, it sounds to me as though there's a, although he sometimes leaves the nusach in a Steigel sense, he always comes back to it, meaning he may not be in a Shem Malach, he may really have gone onto the major, but he finds a way to make it feel as though even if he veers out to the operatic, he finds a way to bring himself back into the nusach style. It still feels like nusach after all.
I couldn't agree more. Of course, I must say, great Chazanut is coming out of the Nusach. That means, in both senses, coming out, that means springing out of the Nusach, that the Nusach is its foundation, and then coming out of the Nusach, I mean going out to explore other venues. And this kind of tension, or I would say two sides of the singing of Chazanut, that makes the Chazanut interesting, and also it ties it to the tradition. Otherwise, what does it have to do with Jewish tradition? If you really deviate completely and only sing operas, as a matter of fact, there used to be a time in some communities, both in Europe and in America, where people used to sing, Chazanim would sing Hebrew texts with opera melodies, to the great pleasure of the congregation. But I think that time is gone, and there was lots of objection to it. Naomi, to follow your comment, it's very interesting to notice how altar goes out of a mode and into a mode, and again out of a mode and into a mode, varying the modes according to the nature of the verses, of the text itself. And that is a very important
You're saying
element.
he was very attentive and sensitive to the text and the emotion in the text, something which we hear more and more composers of cantorial compositions doing that, meaning at certain places, as you say, more the softness and the supplication. In others, a more majestic, hamalacha, often to do with Malchuyot. And so in this way, you say that Alter has a certain sensitivity to the text.
Yeah, it's very much.
Even in a word painting, even kind of an aspect, something which we heard even before that, Todos Greenberg was in a way very sensitive as far as, words going up and down and the contour following certain word paintings, which the text alludes to.
Yeah, I must say that Alter in this piece, in some places, is less prone to less using word painting. So, for instance, Ki lecha tichra kol berech tishava kol lashon. For you, every knee bow down. Then most cantos would take it down, really, with a word painting of a kind of a scale going down or a chord going down. But he takes it up in this case, and he's not always for his own reason. But what is also interesting is the absolute command of the modal system. All the details of the modal system work here, and the idea when it comes to improvisation is that you want to go out of the mode and back into the mode and be absolutely sure that you come back to the same tonality and to the same mode. Otherwise, you are described as a man who got lost in the woods, and the term for that in Yiddish is verblonget. Is verblonget. That means he kind of got lost in the woods. Also, one has to know that there is a kind of a dramatic force into Alter's, and this is one of the important parts of what in Yiddish is called Zogen or Zogachts. That means that the Chazan is supposed to say. Zogen is saying. Is supposed to say the texts. And if he knows how to use the modes cleverly and use modal features for special texts or special words with some kind of word painting and all of that, he's considered a good zoger, a good sayer. Yeah, a good speaker.
I wonder if we should turn our attention to our two last cantorial pieces, which also show a great deal of sensitivity in alluding to the atmosphere of the text in the music. So maybe we could move to Zavel Zvulun Kvartin and his Tkabe Shofar Gadol, someone who's also maybe even out of the ordinary in his sensitivity to the text and to the emotions of the text.
Okay, so the text is from the end of Shofarot. It is a supplication. Our God and God of our fathers, blow the big shofar for our freedom and carry the big sign to gather our exiles and bring us back from all exiles among the nations to our country, to Zion. So you have two sides of it. The beginning is blow the big shofar. And of course, he does the best he can to imagine a kind of a end of days shofar. It's not a regular shofar that just knows to play a few notes, but it is God's shofar of the end of days. And then from there, he goes to the supplication. And in the supplication, if you will listen carefully, you will hear from time to time he says, oy vey. That's very much Kvartin's style of supplication. So let's hear it. Okay, so that's Zavel Kvartin, and he's a great shofar, and I hope that you notice that he sneaks in oy vey or oy occasionally when he wants to have the atmosphere of supplication. I want to go to something completely different, another means, and we shall end with this one. Another means of enlivening the text, and that is combining melodies which are rhythmical and recitatives which are free, in such a way that you alternate and keep the congregation with these melodies, keep them alert with these melodies. Some of them they can sing, some of them they can never sing, or they can maybe hum with a cantor if they know it from previous years. But in any case, it creates a lively contrast. And that was very important, especially, I must say, to my teacher, Shlomo Zalman Rivlin, who insisted that all long texts of Chazanut should be performed in this way. So I will just demonstrate the beginning of Zichronot with his way of singing. אתה זוכר מעשי עולם ופוקד כל יצורי קדם. Excuse me, I'll take it a little bit lower. אתה זוכר מעשי עולם ופוקד כל יצורי קדם. לפניך נגלו כל תעלומות והמון נסתרות שמבראשית. אין שכחה לפני חיסרי כבודך, ואין נסתר מנגד עינך. So far, a rhythmical melody. Now a recitative. אתה זוכר את כל המפעל, וגם כל היצור לא נכחד ממך. הכל גלוי וידוע לפניך, אדוני אלוהינו, צופה ומביט עד סוף כל הדורות. Again, a rhythmical melody. כי תביא חוק זיכרון, ויפקד כל רוח ונפש, ויזכר מעשים רבים, והמון בריות לאין תכלית. בראשית כזאת הודעת, ומלפנים מותה גילית, זה היום תחילת מעשיך, זיכרון ליום ראשון. Now a little modulation. כי חוק לישראל הוא, משפט לאלוהי יעקב, ועל המדינות בו יאמר, בו יאמר, ועל המדינות בו יאמר, בו יאמר. איזו לחרב ואיזו לשלום, איזו לרע ואיזו לשובע, ובריאהו בהו יפקדו, להזכירם לחיים ולמוות. מי לא נבכה כהיום הזה, כהיום הזה. יזכר כל היצור לפניך בא, מעשה איש ופקודתו, ועלילות מצעדי גבר. מחשבות אדם ותחבולותיו, ויצרי מהללי איש. So for Zalman Rivlin, this combination of rhythmical melody and recitative was very important to keep the text alive. And what he used to do also is to give out the rhythmical melodies as solos for the children in the choir, for the boys in the choir. And they would sing the melody, and then he would continue with the recitative. So
it sounds as though even the recitative isn't, even the nusach part is very scripted, meaning nothing is left to chance. This is not a place for improvisation, but there are very clear notation, even it's for the, the clear music with a clear beat, which has an actual tune, or even the nusach parts, they're very, very clearly scripted from the very beginning. Nothing seems to be left to chance. Am I correct in assuming this?
Yes, in this particular piece, yes. In other pieces, he allowed more freedom for the cantor to improvise. But what he wanted to do, to make sure that the music progresses and continues, and he hated those chazanim who used to improvise endlessly and with lots of embellishment and things like that, that the general structure of the text would get lost in that. So,
I have to say it's a real honor for us to hear you do this, because, I mean, you've studied this, you have this as Gilsa Yadei and Kuta, something that you have learned with your mother's milk, something which we can learn from the actual student of Shlomo Zalman Rivlin and do justice to his composition, something which really cannot be found in recordings elsewhere. And so thank you for giving that to us, and I'm very happy that we have this session recording, and thanks to you, this kind of very important composition will have a future life, perhaps, with people even who are here. So that was just in brackets. I just felt the need to say that, ladies and gentlemen, you have just witnessed something very, very special. I wonder if maybe we should conclude or come towards a conclusion. Maybe we should summarize the different strategies which we've seen today, if there's nothing else particular which we need to say about Rivlin before we move on.
No, I think we should move on. You're right. And so what do we have? Naomi and I summarized all the ingredients that we have just gone through. And I'm sure that one could add some more, but I think that these are the essential things. Fast chanting of simple nusach, sophisticated recitatives built on nusach, but also deviating from the nusach. Clever use of Steiger of the mode with relevant detours and modulations. Using melodic means such as sequences, emphasizing seminal words, using dramatic means, mainly dynamics and parlando. We didn't talk much about parlando, but Quartin, for instance, uses parlando. Sometimes the parlando is done on one note, in order to affect a dramatic text rendition. So let me give you an example. If we take the text, נקווה לך אדוני אלוהינו, לראות מהרה בתפארת עוזך. להעביר גילולים מן הארץ ועלילים קרות יקרתון, לתקן עולם במלכות שדי, לכל בני בשר יקראו בשמך. להפנות אליך כל אישי הארץ. So, including some parlando on one note makes it dramatic. Then creating compositions on selected texts. You take Zacharti Lach Chesed Neoraich by Lewandowski. Zacharti Lach Chesed Neoraich. It's a composition which functions in the middle of the text of Zichronot, and of course it is well known and loved. Inserting melodies which are inspired by folk songs, by klezmer music, and even non-Jewish music, as the Romanian doina. Alternating free recitatives and metered melodies. And then also enabling congregational participation, using traditional melodies for selected verses, veneemar melodies, and textless melodies between paragraphs. So I think this more or less gives us a summary of what we heard today, and I'm sure some of you can add to this list.
I'd like to thank you very much, Eli. I'm really just here to ask the questions and to support this spring of knowledge, which I think all of us have enjoyed for many years, and Be'ezrat Hashem for many more in good health. And really, it's an honor for us. I know that there are questions in the chat session, but I also hear mainly interesting comments and a real conversation which is starting between people within the chat, where people are giving each other interesting comments and recommending articles and saying how wonderful it is to hear you, Eli, singing again and again. That is the comment which I think we've seen the most, how wonderful it is. One of the issues was that there are other veneemar melodies, of course, and also that the Sabeinu Mituvecha tune is similar to a Yiddish folk song that someone mentioned here, and I think that I should maybe find the quote of the song, which seems to be similar to the veneemar tune. But besides from that, I don't see any particular questions. If anyone would like to open up, here I see this. Cantor Sarah Marison says, the Simcha Le'artzenu melody is like a Yiddish song, Reutz, Reutz, wie weit bist du? For example, that's one of the comments. I don't know if we all know the melody, I don't.
Melody for Reutz, Reutz is Reutz, Reutz, wie weit bist du?
So I wonder if perhaps it's just it's a common, maybe one of these common the Ashkenazi song or the Ashkenazi kind of motive, which can be used, as we know, in many different settings and worlds. unless this is a quotation. And by the way, maybe Achbar Achbar really is based on something which became sort of common knowledge that everyone would know. A simple phrase, da 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 na 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 da 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 na 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 na, sort of. Another question which we have is, I wonder if the congregational refrains relate to the Meshorer vocalise sections that were being purged from the liturgy in the 19th century, according to Jeffrey Goldberg's research. This is a question from Jeremiah Lockwood.
Okay, that's a very important question. And yes, indeed, the various parts of the Chazanut tradition, even after the Meshorim style of Chazan, Bas, and Zingerl, became into a non-existence, actually, remained with us. And some of these, like singing melodies without text, was really was borrowed from some of these practices, indeed. Let me just give you an example, not from Malchuyot, Zichronot, and Shofarot. If you know Rosenblatt's Retzei Atiratam from B'motzai Menucha, it starts with a kind of Chazan Bas Zingerl beginning. Retzei Yasir Rosson, Retzei Yasir Rosson, Be'om Dom Baleilos. Retzei Yasir Rosson, Retzei Yasir Rosson, Be'om Dom Baleilos. And then there comes the big recitative, the big Chazanut. And when the refrain begins, Lishmoa el harina vel atfila, then the bass begins, Lishmoa, Lishmoa el harina, Lishmoa, Lishmoa el harina. This is directly taken from the style of the Meshorim, and such passage would be called by the Chazanim Ashtele. Ashtele means a melody given not to the cantor, but to the bass usually, or to another singer as an introduction. It would serve as an introduction for the chief melody itself. So these are things which came from the earliest style of the Meshorim, as described also by in his magnificent work of Goldberg on Meyer Cohn, on the Chazan Meyer Cohn of Esslingen. I don't hear.
Now do you hear? Yes, we have here a comment of the person who wrote this question. Unmute myself. Thanking us very much, thanking you very much for this answer, saying, I sang the same Lishmoa in my grandfather's choir, Yaakov Königsberg, Zichronot livracha. Another question which we have here from Mark Kligman: what do you recommend to learn or read about improvisation? This is clearly an oral tradition, but how do we best approach understanding improvisation?
Oh my. I'm not sure I can answer this question. This question is beyond me. Unfortunately, we do not have any treatises based on research on Ashkenazi cantorial improvisation. We can start by studying the modes, and there is literature about the modes. I can't give you now offhand the literature about the modes. There are a few good books and articles about the modes, but the problem is that as some of us researchers, I suppose if Boaz Tarsi is here, he would be very well aware that the whole business of modes is very controversial nowadays, and for every opinion that you have about the modes, you have a counter opinion, and it's very difficult to assess this area. So therefore, what should be done is to do real research in cantorial improvisation, first analyzing what I would call frozen improvisations, which is improvisation which were set up in writing. These were, many cantors used their improvisation as the basis for their written music. And so you can treat it in a way as improvisation. And then we need field work.
Yes, Boaz has responded in the chat, and I'm quoting what he says. He says, the issue of improvisation in this articulate discipline starts with the fact that it is only semi-extemporized performance. So first of all, the degrees of freedom are built in and part of what actually defines the mode. I think we should probably recommend that Boaz could lead maybe one of these conversations on Zoom in the future regarding this very interesting issue of improvisation in Ashkenazi Nusach. But maybe that's something which we should leave for another topic, since it's such a very big question that we need to give it its own time. Other questions? I don't seem to see that we have any more.
Let me just mention another one thing. It is true, I agree with Boaz about that much of the improvisation is in a way semi-improvised. That means the modes have something to do with it, the tradition and the routine has something to do with it too. In other words, a Chazan creates some kind of a routine which he does from Shabbat to Shabbat, and then he solidifies this routine, and this became a basis for some kind of more embellishment done by improvisation. So all this thing is quite complicated. But let me just say on the other side, what the way Pinchas Miskovsky described the real improvisation, especially the atmosphere of improvisation that he used to go through in his singing. And he describes it as a kind of elated experience in which you do not know what you do or where you go from it, but your soul is keeping you in the right way. That's a very interesting experience that he has. And I don't think that he was just boasting. I think it was a real description, and we have descriptions of other people who heard him improvise, and it's very similar to what he describes himself.
So it's interesting, it seems as though he's almost describing it as a place or a path that you go on a nusach, and even maybe when it's happening, you don't know what it is that it's happening, but when you're on this path, it leads you to a certain way. You need to know where you came from and where you're going, and not to get verblendend, as they say, lost in the forest, and to continue on a certain path which is leading you, again, letting your spirit lead you in a way, meaning not being too aware of the musical aspects and planning ahead, but more just being attuned to yourself, to the words, to the tefillah, to where you've come from and where you're supposed to be going.
Yeah, may I say that one of the great American Chazanim, I will not mention his name for some reason, he was a great Chazan, one of the greatest Chazanim of the beginning of the 20th century in the United States. And he said, a good improvisation is a prepared improvisation. And he used to have little pieces of melodies, snatches of melodies in his pockets. And when he prayed at the services, he used to take out these pieces from his pockets and use them in his improvisation. And it is told that one Friday night, he wasn't able to find these little snatches of in his pocket. Somehow they got lost in his pocket, and so he stopped the service. He stopped the service, and he said to the congregation, "Wart a minut, wait a minute." And then he looked very carefully and somebody found some of the pieces. And that's, "Jetzt kann ich schon davenen." Now I can pray. And he continued with his improvisation.
So this is an extremely scripted and improvisation. When you say continued with his improvisation, a question is, can it still be called that if it's so much based on a zettelach?
Here is Boaz Tarsi to give us a session.
Yes, I think that we really should invite Boaz to give his own a conversation on Zoom regarding the issue of improvisation, which actually has been researched quite a lot in ethnomusicology in other themes of improvisation. I know there are quite a few scholarly volumes which are dedicated to the question of improvisation, but I think in the world of Ashkenazi liturgy, it's something which is yet to be explored. So I think that unless there's something else that we should Eli, is there anything else you feel like we haven't given enough Zoom space to? Should we conclude this this very enjoyable for me session of ours?
Yeah, let's conclude. I don't think I have any. I just wanted to thank you, Naomi. Without you, I couldn't have done it. Thank you so much.
Without you, we wouldn't have had any of this. So I thank you, and I also thank our hosts. We have to potchim b'chvod achsanya. We haven't opened with the, but we have said thank you very much to Geraldine and Malcolm and everyone else, Marta, who has enabled this, and may this be the beginning of many of conversations where we talk about Jewish music together and hear all sorts of interesting voices from different people around the world, around the Jewish world of Jewish music. And thank you very, very much for everyone involved. There is a recording, and I think that this is something which would maybe be able to send a link to by email, Geraldine, later on, right?
Yeah.
So that it will be accessible to everyone. And also there is a link in the chat to download this PowerPoint presentation with all of the musical examples and recordings and videos.
Thank you. If I may just come in, can you hear me? Yeah? Can
yes,
you hear
we
me?
hear you. Yes,
we
absolutely.
Hear me. To say thank you so much to Naomi and Eli for this wonderful opening session. And to everybody who's been here for your enthusiastic comments and your wonderful concentration. It's been a wonderful thing to do. Now, on the forum website, there is a conversation continuation. There is a discussion. So please try to join that and then put your comments on the discussion, and we can continue this discussion along the way in between. I did notice that somebody said, please, Naomi and Eli, could you do this on a regular basis? Could you come and do it again? So anybody who does a conversation doesn't mean you've done it and you ticked off. You're very welcome to do it again and to come back again. We are thinking about whether we should have a Facebook group, not to store things or stream them, but just for ease of communication. So I'd be interested in your comments of who thinks this is a good idea and who thinks it's a terrible idea. But in the meantime, I would recommend, if you can possibly join Humanities Commons and join the Jewish Music Group, we can, between ourselves, carry on this conversation. Next week, we will have a wonderful session where Matt Austerklein, young Chazan in Ohio, scholar and Chazan, will be talking to Abraham Lubin, who I'm sure many of you know, past president of the Cantors Assembly, who started his cantorial training in London at Jews College with Leo Brill. We have many more sessions already being selected, one about Ernest Bloch, considering the anniversaries of his birth and death in July. Yehoash is going to be interviewing and talking to Tzvi Avni, who's 93. And, you know, Hankus and Jeremiah Lockwood are going to be talking. So thank you all. And I'm really happy that you feel that this platform is something that you're ready, as I always say, to come and dance on. So thank you so much. And thank you for this wonderful opening session. And thank you, everybody. There have been 65 people in this room. And that's a very good blessing for us for the start. And so thank you very, very much. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Martha. Thank you, Sarah. And thank you, Eli and Naomi and everybody.
And Gerald, thank you.
Thank you. All the best.